Okay, this is 140-160, and we are going to do some doctor testimony here. This is about a delivery of a baby. Here we go. And this is all one long answer. Well, the baby normally is delivered with the back of its head facing the ceiling, okay? The mother is lying on her back, and as the baby comes out, the back of its head will be pointed to the ceiling. A baby is called anterior if this happens. If a baby comes out with its face pointing upwards, the ceiling, in other words, sort of upside down, then it's called a posterior, okay? And the reason for that designation is that everything takes place on the posterior fontanelle here. This thing, it's through this location. If the baby is halfway in between, so that the baby's head is coming out sideways, this way, either way, so the side of the head comes out, and it's called transverse, okay? 90% or a large percentage of the babies who are delivered, particularly first babies, deliver anterior, but almost all of them will engage in a transverse position. They will come down in a transverse position and then rotate so that the back of the head comes out, and they rotate into an anterior. It was my opinion that this lady had not rotated. She had not rotated that head into the anterior position. So I instructed the residents to manually rotate the head. I thought she was an LOT, which means that the left occiput or the occiput was on the patient's left side. So you rotate it this way so that the head comes up. The resident did. We put the vacuum on one more time. The vacuum came off. I called time, invited the chief resident into the hall and told him I thought we should do a cesarean section. I said I thought we could take her over to the operating room and use trial forceps if we wanted to, but I thought that we would probably eventually end up with a cesarean. I then, at that point, went back to the nurse's station. The chief resident, Dr. Acquiano, went back into the room. Now, I don't know what happened at this point because I was not a witness to it. All I know is I went back to the nurse's station to write my note that we were going to do a section and wait for Dr. Acquiano to come out and start making the necessary phone calls to get anesthesia, et cetera, to set up for the section. And the next thing I know, Dr. Bowerman, the pediatrician doctor, is running out into the hall asking me to come into the delivery room stat immediately. I went into the room stat immediately, and this was approximately 16:50. And you'll have to give me a minute or two there because I went in, and what was immediately obvious was what we call a turtle sign. The baby's head comes out, and because the shoulders don't descend immediately, the head sort of sucks back in, sort of comes back in, and it looks like one of the Notre Dame football linemen with its shoulder pads on, just bunched up here like this. And from the quick history that Dr. Acquiano gave me, who was at the perineum at this point trying to deliver this baby, it was immediately apparent that we had a shoulder dystocia. I put on a pair of gloves. I was still in street clothes. I arrived at 16:30. It's 20 minutes later. I haven't had time to change. I've just been watching this going on. So I put on a pair of gloves, and as I was putting the gloves on the gloves, I watched Dr. Acquiano trying to deliver this shoulder, and I just observed which direction he was rotating the baby in, and I observed that it wasn't working. So when I got in there, I instructed the OB staff, the nursing staff, to get her into what was known as Mac Roberts position, which is when you get their legs up as high as you can get them right now. That is as high as I can get mine, but you get them way up. We got one of the residents, Dr. Gable, to press on her abdomen, and we had to get him way up in the air because in order to do this, we had to elevate the bed as high as we could get it. Everything has to be pulled posterior to get the shoulders out. It has to be pulled towards the floor. And even with the bed elevated, I had to get down on my knees to get low enough to get a good angle. I know there are doctors who don't agree with this, but after 35 years, I know that this is the way it's delivered. Some of them don't believe that you need to get that low, but I find that it's best to get down on your knees And that way you don't pull straight out, you pull down. The birth canal goes down. So we got suprapubic pressure with the doctor on the abdomen. We got the Mac Roberts position, and I rotated the baby the other way, and the shoulder popped out, lifted it up. Dr. Aguiano got his finger in the armpit here, and as it came out, we pulled out a little bit, lifted up this way, and out came the baby. And I handed it over to the pediatric staff, and I didn't have time. We cut the cord so fast and got it to the pediatrics so fast that I really didn't notice whether or not there was good arterial pulse in the cord. We got cord blood. I took a section of cord and got a cord blood. I believe the pH was 7.3. The pediatricians had a bit of a trouble getting the motor started, as it were. They required some intubation and some suction. I don't know exactly what they did. I stayed out of their way, but I know they worked on the baby for a while. I don't know exactly how much time. You'll have to check the record for that. I just don't know. The baby did start to have a good heartbeat and did start to breathe. I don't remember right offhand right now whether or not there was, what kind of a cry there was or anything like that. Once it was in the pediatrician's hands, I just let them do their thing. The remainder of the delivery was then assumed by the house staff. They did the repair on the episiotomy and this sort of thing. I don't remember how much episiotomy there was. I hope there was at least a 3 or 4 degree. We needed a lot of space. By the time I got there, the whole area was covered up. I couldn't see how much was there. I went on back to my office because I was, well, I had kind of ruined my street clothes. There was blood and amniotic fluid and the whole works. And when I went into my office, I noticed Dr. Lindenberg was sitting in his office. And so I mentioned to him, we had been trying to page him, that him or one of his faculty, one of his attending staff, that we had a depressed baby. And I thought he would probably want to go up and take a look at it, which he did. And I think the rest is probably pretty much history that you know. From then on, I made one visit that night to the nursery, and Dr. Lindenberg and I sat there for a half hour or so discussing the case and trying to figure out what was going on. And we really didn't come to any great conclusions at that time because, well, I've been looking at this stuff for, well, I started doing obstetrics in 1973, and I can't tell you how many shoulder dystocias I've seen over that many years, but there has been quite a few, I presume. And I've been on the full-time faculty at various medical schools as well as private practice, and I've seen a number of shoulder dystocias, and I don't remember any being depressed like this. Depressed means centrally depressed, yeah. So it wasn't any surprise to me at all when the postmortem came back and there was some central pathology. It certainly wasn't a diagnosis that I could make because, you know, that's not my field. And it wasn't a diagnosis that Dr. Lindenberg, I don't know why I should say what Dr. Lindenberg was thinking. I don't know what he was thinking at the time, but we were both looking for some sort of reason for a shoulder dystocia to be as depressed. I've seen them depressed for 2 or 3 minutes, and then they usually pick right up and take off. So as I say, when the pathology report came back, there was central trauma. Not trauma, but there was pre-existing brain damage. And I was not surprised. How's the speed?
I'm trying to keep up.
Okay, let's do some a little bit slower. I'm gonna have to skip some here because this is all Q&A. Okay, here we go. I have an unwritten, excuse me, I have an unwritten rule myself that I will not let myself, and I don't use the vacuum very much and haven't over the years, but I don't let residents use it more than 2 or 3 times in my presence, and then at that point something has to be reevaluated. Either they're putting it on wrong, the baby's position is wrong, the criteria for using it is wrong, something isn't right. So at that point, I thought we should reevaluate the situation. We did. I thought she was transverse. We corrected the transverse, put it on again. It didn't work. I said, no more. So the first alternative most obstetricians would consider, we must go back to the initial premise I was given to determine that. In other words, that Dr. Gill gave me. In other words, we have a normal prima gravida in labor with no complications, which to me, when a fellow specialist tells me no problems or complications, means we have a normal pelvis, normal sized baby, normal things going on. So if I had a prima gravida first baby who was having some difficulty with second stage of labor with no known complications, I would consider myself using forceps. And I would have probably considered that, but I don't think you immediately go to cesarean section. Now, there may be circumstances in your evaluation that may take you to go to cesarean section first. There may be maternal things that say, well, I don't think we should fool around this way with forceps. Or maybe there are maternal things that say, yes, we should definitely try forceps first because we try section. It should probably be suction. So there are a number of options that may present themselves at that point. I think vacuum extraction is a good option, especially in a teaching program, because I think that the resident physicians, especially if it's an early resident physician like a first-year resident or a second-year resident, can get into less trouble using a vacuum extractor than they can with a forceps. I think there's less problems that way. You don't know of any written rule that says you should put the vacuum extractor on and pull, and if it comes off, it should only happen 3 times, 5 times, 4 times, 2 times, or 8 times, or anything like that. My rule after 35 years of delivering babies is 3 times. If it fails 3 times, something has to be reevaluated. Something has to be rejudged. Something needs to change. And if I had thought so, I might have said at that point, well, let's use mid-forceps and rotate this baby. But I elected at that point to try one more time with the vacuum, and then once that failed, I just thought we should proceed right on down the hall. Okay, there's more interchange here. I think we're going to put this aside for the day. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Dystocia? You familiar with it?
Yeah, on your site, right?
Okay. And is it, I thought it was prima. They have it prime me, P-R-I-M-I.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was.
How did you pronounce it? Is it, I know it's how many times you've been pregnant. I'm going to look at my phone, look at my dictionary. And it was, okay, so it doesn't come up with primee, prima. It doesn't come up that way either. Maybe it's 2 words. Something's wrong here. I don't know. I'm not going to find it in a general dictionary. Okay. I'm going to put a sticky in here so we know where we stopped, and maybe we'll do more of it when I have 2 boys next week. And we'll move on to some other material. Okay, I'm going to work on a couple more briefs. Let's review these real quick. The light briefs: brake light, daylight, emergency light, flashlight, green light, headlight, highlight, porch light, red light, stop light, street light, traffic light, yellow light. Did you see his brake light? When is daylight? Use the emergency light when necessary.
That one, M.
Yes, M, final L chain. Hand me that flashlight. Proceed through the green light. My headlight was broken. Highlight the main points. Turn on the porch light. Stop at the red light. Turn right at the next stoplight. The street light was out. The traffic light was red. Run through the red light. Okay, here's some briefs for evidence. And you may be using these. Actually, I'm going to take that back. We're good. No, we'll do these. Okay, so evidence. These are phrases that end in evidence. So best evidence, BEFD. Best evidence. Character evidence, KEFD. It's not so commonly used, character evidence, I don't think. But best evidence, yes, BEFD. Circumstantial evidence, yes, SEFD. Circumstantial evidence. Direct evidence, DREFD. Clear and convincing evidence, KLEFD. Clear and convincing evidence, KLEFD. Direct evidence, best evidence, circumstantial evidence, clear and convincing evidence, good evidence, GEFT. Indirect evidence, NEFD, indirect evidence. Physical evidence, FEFD. Physical evidence, FEFD. Relevant evidence, REFD. Relevant evidence. Physical evidence. Indirect evidence. Good evidence. Direct evidence. Clear and convincing evidence. Circumstantial evidence. Best evidence. Now I'll try to be creative and create some little sentences. Here we go. Is that your best evidence? Objection, circumstantial evidence. The case should be tried on the clear and convincing evidence. Mr. Brown, are you ready for direct evidence? Your Honor, this is good evidence. Objection, indirect evidence. Do you have the physical evidence? Is that relevant evidence to the case? Relevant evidence, physical evidence, indirect evidence, good evidence, direct evidence, clear and convincing evidence, circumstantial evidence, best evidence. And the character evidence is KEFD. I just honestly don't think that ever comes up, but it's not, you know, worth spending the time learning. Some of them aren't. Okay, let's do some straight matter warm-up. On the record. Mr. President, the bill I am introducing to you today calls for the establishment of a national weather policy and program. The goal of this piece of legislation is to expand the nation's knowledge of weather and climatic trends and fluctuations. This bill also proposes to develop more efficient methods and techniques of dealing with climatic variations that affect not only people but geography as well. Everyone in this chamber has firsthand knowledge of the effect that the Earth's climate patterns have on our everyday life. On a daily basis, we decide how we will dress based on the weather forecast. We decide whether we will remain indoors for the day or go outdoors based on climatic variations. We decide where we will live based on the climate in a certain area of the country. We plan our vacations around prevailing temperatures at certain times of the year in specific vacation spots around the world. During the last decade, the United States has experienced some unusual weather phenomena. We have seen the western states deluged with rainfall after a long period of drought. We have seen the Midwest buried by floods caused by unseasonable rainfall. We have seen the eastern seaboard experience blizzards and freezing temperatures, followed by scorching summer temperatures. We have seen almost every state in the continental United States experience either hurricanes or tornadoes. Our society is extremely sensitive to changes in the climate. In the last 5 years, the Sun Belt states have experienced a large population influx, which is primarily due to more favorable weather conditions. The North Atlantic states have seen a population decrease over the last decade. People are not the only things moving to more favorable climates. Corporations are relocating to areas where the weather extremes are less severe. The bill that I am introducing today, along with my distinguished colleagues, Senator McBride of New York and Senator Stevenson of Colorado, is drawn from reports prepared by the National Advisory Committee for Climatic Trends. This bill provides for the following. 1, the initiation of extensive research studies to determine the causes of climatic fluctuations and variations. 2, the cooperative effort of the U.S. government along with the private sector in the monitoring, collecting, and tabulating of weather and climate data. 3, the cooperative effort of the U.S. government and foreign governments in the monitoring, collecting, and tabulating of weather and climate data. 4, the continued use and development of weather satellites and other technology to monitor, collect, and tabulate weather and climate data. 5, the cooperative effort of Congress with the United States Weather Bureau to continue its studies on climatic trends, variations, and fluctuations. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, this bill will be available for additions and/or revisions during this session. Your contributions toward its development have been appreciated. Deluge. How'd you get that?
D on A and like the essays. I don't know what I did next to this.
You could do DL, squeeze it, and long UJ. Deluge.
Yeah.
Deluge. Did you use J?
I think so.
That's a funny sound. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back and break this down in 1-minute segments. A little bit faster. Here we go. Mr. President, the bill I am introducing to you today calls for the establishment of a national weather policy and program. The goal of this piece of legislation is to expand the nation's knowledge of weather in climatic trends and fluctuations. This bill also proposes to develop more efficient methods and techniques of dealing with climatic variations that affect not only people, but geography as well. Everyone in this chamber has firsthand knowledge of the effect that the Earth's climate patterns have on our everyday life. On a daily basis, we decide how we will dress based on the weather forecast. We decide whether we will remain indoors for the day or go outdoors based on climatic variations. We decide where we will live based on the climate in a certain area of the country. We plan our vacations around prevailing temperatures at certain times of the year in specific vacation spots around the world. During the last decade, the United States has experienced some unusual weather phenomena. We have seen the western states deluged with rainfall after a long period of drought. We have seen the Midwest buried by floods caused by unseasonable rainfall. We have seen the eastern seaboard experience blizzards and freezing temperatures, followed by scorching summer temperatures. We have seen almost every state in the continental United States experience either hurricanes or tornadoes. Our society is extremely sensitive to the changes in the climate. In the last 5 years, the Sun Belt states have experienced a large population influx, which is primarily due to more favorable weather conditions. The North Atlantic states have seen a population decrease over the last decade. People are not the only things moving to more favorable climates. Corporations are relocating to areas where the weather extremes are less severe. The bill that I am introducing today, along with my distinguished colleagues, Senator McBride of New York and Senator Stevens of Colorado, is drawn from reports prepared by the National Advisory Committee for Climatic Trends. This will be the last one. This bill provides for the following. 1, the initiation of extensive research studies to determine the causes of climatic fluctuations and variations. 2, the cooperative effort of the U.S. government along with the private sector in the monitoring, collecting, and tabulating of weather and climate data. 3, the cooperative effort of the U.S. government and foreign governments in the monitoring, collecting, and tabulating of weather and climate data. 4, the continued use and development of weather satellites and other technology to monitor, collect, and tabulate weather and climate data. 5, the cooperative effort of Congress with the United States Weather Bureau to continue its studies on climatic trends, variations, and fluctuations. Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, this bill will be available for additions and/or revisions during this session. Your contributions toward its development have been appreciated. Okay, let's do a little bit of feedback from this next segment. So I'll slow it down. Those pushes were at 170. Okay, here we go. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased and honored today to have the opportunity to introduce a bill to revise the Employment Economic Opportunity Act. My distinguished colleague and friend, Senator Bryant, who hails from the great state of New Hampshire, is the current chairman of the Committee to Develop Employment Opportunities. I have also had the honor of being a member of this committee. This bill is designed to make significant modifications to the job development program. This program has been around since the early 1960s and is in need of a complete overhaul. My colleagues and I have perceived many weaknesses in the job development program. The original intent of the program was to create job training and jobs for welfare recipients in urban areas. Somehow, the program has fallen short of that goal. Okay, let's take a look at that little short piece.
Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased and honored to be, today to have the opportunity to introduce a bill to revise the Employment Economic Opportunity Act. My distinguished colleague and friend, Senator Bryant, who hails from the great state of New Hampshire, is the current member of the chairman of the committee to develop employment opportunities. I also have the honor of being a member of this committee. This bill is designed to make significant modifications to the job development program. This program has been around since the early 1960s and is in need of a complete overhaul. My colleagues and I have perceived many weaknesses in the job development program. Is it in?
Mm-hmm.
In the job
Yes.
development program. The regional, original.
Good.
It's original, but
It's not an S. Maybe initial N?
original. I don't know.
Intent.
Oh, okay, intent of the program was to create job training and jobs for welfare recipients in urban areas. Somehow the program has fallen short of that goal.
Good. Okay. We're going to repeat that and go on. Excuse me. Here we go. This will be between 160 and 170. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased and honored today to have the opportunity to introduce a bill to revise the Employment Economic Opportunity Act. My distinguished colleague and friend, Senator Bryant, who hails from the great state of New Hampshire, is the current chairman of the committee to develop employment opportunities. I have also had the honor of being a member of this committee. This bill is designed to make significant modifications to the job development program. This program has been around since the early 1960s and is in need of a complete overhaul. My colleagues and I have perceived many weaknesses in the job development program. The original intent of the program was to create job training and jobs for welfare recipients in urban areas. Somehow, the program has fallen short of that goal. This bill is also designed to revise and update the youth employment program. This program was originally designed to develop and train the young people of America in the attainment of job skills that would enable them to pursue careers in factories and manufacturing plants across the United States of America. This broad-based training program has also fallen short of its original intent. Mr. Speaker, this new bill is not only authorized to modify and revise the job development program and the youth employment program, but it is also designed to train minorities in a variety of job-related skills. Bilingual education programs would be offered for Spanish-speaking individuals along with job preparation skills and techniques. Mr. Speaker, I have had a very long and personal involvement in and an identification with our great nation's war on poverty. My background is very diverse, including experience with the Peace Corps and the Job Corps of the United States of America. I have worked with the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and also with the Labor Department on employment-related issues. My experience dates back to the days of Lyndon Johnson. I have also worked closely with Presidents Ford and Reagan on employment-related issues. I have worked with President Carter on housing the homeless and the Habitat Project. The strategy that has always been used is to attempt to try to break the vicious cycle of poverty that has become a hopeless web for many Americans. Like many other problems that Congress is confronted with, the problem of poverty is ever present in America. The cycle of poverty can be broken with a firm commitment and a fierce determination to free the poor of America from discrimination and dependency. The acquisition of job skills can break the cycle of poverty and unemployment that is a blight on the urban areas of this great nation. Government research indicates that there has been only a modest decline in the poverty level in America since 1972. This is due to many factors, including the following. First, there has been a rapid increase in the rate of inflation. This has been coupled with no significant increase in wages for semi-skilled workers. Second, because of many factors, including an increased amount of overseas trade, there has been a decline in plant expansion. This has eliminated the need for many jobs where the completion of routine tasks can be eliminated or computerized. Third, industrial development in urban areas has not taken place. The large cities in the United States of America are in a state of decay. There are few, if any, jobs available to people who reside in urban America. Fourth, the poor of America have come to rely on the U.S. government for everything. They depend on government to supply food stamps, welfare, and health care benefits. It is a proven fact that the poor of America have become too dependent on Uncle Sam. The incentive to work, to achieve, and to escape the cycle of poverty is rapidly diminishing, leaving us with a generation of individuals who are comfortable being on the government dole. Mr. Speaker, the bill we are introducing today reaffirms our commitment to give the poor of America the opportunity they deserve to escape from the cycle of poverty. This bill is far-reaching in its impact. The bill is designed to introduce community development training programs in urban areas. The bill will provide job training programs with plants and manufacturing facilities. The aim and intent of this on-the-job training is to serve as an incentive to many individuals to seek further training and education in related fields. The proposed bill is also designed to offer re-education for displaced workers whose skills are no longer marketable in their particular field of endeavor. Mr. Speaker and my distinguished colleagues, I urge your support for the revised 1994 version of the Employment Economic Opportunity Act. Okay, that was all pretty fast. You familiar with the word dole, D-O-L-E? Okay, so government dole, those are handouts. It's kind of like if you're on the dole, it's someone who's receiving welfare. We're going to start takes. So I'm going to end our practice session.